So Labour's directing activists to 13 seats out of the 28 that it won in 2019, which has a fifth, at least, of Muslim support. And if you go to their site, they're directing activists to go there because there's a concern around the issue of Gaza and the discussion for Israel. Now, some people would have said in the local elections and this election, why are people not making national, local issues their key things rather than international ones? We have seen that some people have left the Labour Party, like in Birmingham, people standing on a Gaza first position. And we've seen both Jeremy Corbyn, who's standing independent, and others like George Galloway. And this is posing a bit of an existential threat for Labour in the same way that perhaps the Conservatives are having their own challenge with reform. They're saying that they want to appeal to the Muslim community, and it's still saying that 63% of them are going to go with Labour, but they're of an older generation. I think what's so interesting about this is the increasing identity politics that's happening and the fact that an issue that's abroad can take so much attention. And the question surely becomes...
something over which we can't do a great deal about.
Well, surely the question becomes, what are our common values and common principles? Are we citizens that share in them? Or is it something... And we've seen also, I've got to say, a big concern. Not only have we seen people like Rosie Duffield, who has now had to stand away because of threats to her safety, but MPs that have been threatened with violence, Labour MPs and others, and getting burnt down in attacks. And I think that everyone should challenge that attack on democracy and free speech. But, and as citizens, we've got to be able to hear one another.
I mean, look, I absolutely abhor the horrific loss of life in Palestine and other hotspots around the world. But we're in a position where Labour are talking about changing what they're doing to defend 13 seats. But people want to hear policies about what's going to happen in Penzance, Portsmouth, Penrith, not necessarily Palestine. Alan's absolutely right. Because of social media and the internet, we're now gazing at our TV at whatever the big story is in town and doing absolutely nothing about home affairs. We had an era previously, the huge explosion, and rightly so in some ways, about George Floyd, where people were arguing in Parliament for months, weeks, changing company policy, changing things in Britain because of something that happened in a completely different continent, as abhorrent as it is. And Labour have to be strong enough and bold enough to do what matters for Britain, because ultimately that is what people are going to vote on. And I
think that's true, but the question is, though, that identity politics has become a defining feature. So whether it's Latitude Festival being cancelled as a consequence or other festivals that are having their sponsorship taken away, this issue has become something, hundreds of thousands of people protesting on the streets every week. This issue isn't just something that's a side issue, it's something that's come to dominate, particularly in certain cities around the UK.
But I'm with you, Alan, but progressive policies, like all the things that you're talking about, lead to regressive outcomes. We end up with people trying to say the right thing, but doing absolutely nothing. Saying the right thing and getting wrong outcomes. When people go to bed at night and they lie awake worrying, they're worried about crime, they're worried about pensions, they're worried about their kids getting into the right schools, they're worried about health, they're worried about all of these things. And yet, when I watch TV, politicians are talking about sort of splinter culture issues that don't impact people's lives.
It's really
in
interesting.
And I think we have to have grown-up politicians who have proper morals, proper values, and stick to them.
Well, that's
and
the point.
Don't wave in the wind.
What is the proper moral and value? Because the thing is, and that's what was so interesting about the parade yesterday and the idea of a shared culture and history and traditions, those ideas have been under attack. The idea that we have common values and principles that we uphold, there's been a huge debate about an attack on that, decolonise the curriculum, the idea that everything we've done is about terrible things to everyone, and also our own institutions being dominated by certain outlooks. I think there's a time where we have to address these issues in terms of our own identity, our own values. The economy, wealth creation, productivity is essential, but this is no longer a side issue. This is front and centre about our political arena. And it does strike me that we need to be able to assert the questions of a principle around common values that so many people get tongue-tied about in Labour and the Conservatives.